And thank you to everyone who is joining this afternoon. Thank you for spending the afternoon with me and exploring the Duty to Care Hub and some of the key topics and information that's there. As a bit of a Brucey bonus for joining this session, what I am asking is for Charlie to help facilitate those that want some free access to the membership zone, shall we say, of the hub. And so towards the latter end of this session, I'll just be asking people to pop in the word yes into the chat so that Charlie's got permission to give your emails. So we need individual emails to be able to sign you up for that free access if you want to go ahead and do that. So I'm just giving you a bit of an early disclaimer in case anybody does need to drop off, either to just pop in the word yes into the chat if you want free access. It'll be for a limited time, up to 2 months, but it's so that you can explore some of those more deeper value, higher valued items as part of the hub. At free at kind of our expense really at UK Coaching, so you don't need to pay for that. Yeah, straight in there. Yes, sign me up. I'm there. Any freebie, I'm there. And it just allows Charlie that permission to pass over the email, because without that, I can't just take your emails due to obviously GDPR and looking after. We're all in there now. Yep, sign everybody up is the sort of overarching vibe. Loving the energy already. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So without further ado, I will crack on. This is an informal session. We are going to be looking at the topic of duty to care. Disclaimer that there may be some triggers during today's session. We do thankfully have some welfare officers as well in the chat. I've seen you sneak in there from your sort of roles and what you fulfill, so that's great as well. Obviously, if you do need to take 5 minutes for yourself, then please do. I'd also like to invite people to be respectfully honest and authentic during this session as well. So one thing that we really unearthed as part of this session was the real honesty in the sector. So when UK Coaching went upon our mission to create the hub, which I'll talk about in a moment, we really got under the skin of some systemic challenges that we face as a sector, as a coaching sector. And so with the same vein around authenticity and honesty, I would really like us to really open up some respectful conversation today about some of the issues we're going to be talking about. And it is important to be respectful. So to try to refrain from judgment and try to keep it a really nice, safe, open environment where we can have some really nice, deep conversations about some of these deep-rooted challenges, because it's only there can we really start to nudge that needle for change. And you guys, by joining today, are part of that change. So thank you for being a part of that change. And obviously, our thanks to you is by providing free access there and hopefully giving you guys access to some really valuable resources that's going to help you in your role, your personal space. But also, I'm using some of the tools today as part of my delivery material. So I'll hopefully be able to model how you might also be able to use some of this material in the hub for free with your delivery as well, if you want to cascade this out as part of your roles within the system. Okay, so less of that, and let's have a little go. So host has disabled my sharing capability. That's very useful. Are we okay to go ahead?
Try that, Kelly.
Okay, I'll give it a little whirl. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so Charlie will be helping with hopefully some of the chat that's going on today, because I'm quite limited as to what I can see on the one screen. So if you're okay with that, Charlie, just keep interrupting. If there are any kind of points for discussion, feel free to interrupt. There will be some time for breakouts and discussions as well, as Charlie's explained. So I'll be trusting Charlie in that support there as well. Fabulous. Okay, so we have the pleasure today in supporting in Coaching Week, and obviously do speak up if you've got something to say, but otherwise if we can keep our mics unmuted, just to kind of refrain any background noises or sensitive conversations that might be going on around you from being recorded. So duty to care. So we explored the duty to care as a concept probably about 4 years ago now at UK Coaching. So UK Coaching, we're the lead charity for learning development and services for coaches across the whole of the sector, the whole of the UK. And we support all national governing bodies, active partnerships, and further institutes and educational institutes around really developing coaches to be the very best that they can be. And part of our role as our sort of system sector developers is to also provide that kind of centre conduit for information for coaches and organisations to access. And duty to care is one of them. So about 4 years ago, we created the first iteration of our duty to care toolkit, which it was there. And it came on the back of Tanni Gray's report. She was commissioned by the Minister of Sport to look at, oh, put someone on mute there. Just, put that person on mute there. Yeah, so she was commissioned by the Minister of Sport to look at some of the systemic challenges around welfare for participants to participate safely in sport and activity. And one of her findings in that report was that we, as either UK coaching or as a sector, need to have a central hub of resources where all coaches from all levels, grassroots through to podium, and anywhere in between can access resources, either free or low charge. And that's what UK coaching set out to do. So this has been funded by Sport England, partly funded by Sport England and partly funded by UK Coaching. And we've also had kind contributions by way of subject matter expertise from all of the system partners that we work with as well. So there's subject matter experts such as the Ancraft Trust when it comes to safeguarding adults, the NSPCC and CPSU when it comes to safeguarding children, and so on and so forth. And Tanni Gray-Thompson, Barness Tanni Gray-Thompson, has been at the very heart of the development. Now, this is the second iteration, so it's almost like launching a new platform, a new product. You learn from your mistakes when you launch it the first time round, and that's exactly what we've done with our second version, which is this one now. And we launched this one, what month are we in now? Yeah, so we launched this one in summer last year, so as part of Coaching Week, and it has been such a successful lesson the first time that this time round it's been received with open arms. So thankfully it's working and it's doing its job, and we've really responded to learner feedback from the first time round. Learners wanted something which was much more agile, somewhere that you can come and pick and choose what you need when you need it, and something that was easy to navigate but realistic. So we're much less vanilla this time round, and what we mean by that is we're calling out what needs to be called out, and we're also then really helping people to figure out what solutions can coaches and people at those grassroots, at those sort of really micro societal changes, what little steps or bigger changes can be made along the way to make sport and activity a really safe environment for everybody. So this is the badge, and that's the link there. So that's where you can go and find the Duty to Care Hub. So even if you was to Google UK Coaching Duty to Care, it would come up and it would take you straight to the first part of the landing page. And that's exactly where you need to be. It'll ask you to sign up for a free account, and you can access the badge, the knowledge checks to get your badge, and you can access a lot of resources at that level. But for those that have kind of popped yes into the chat, Charlie will be taking everybody's emails, and you'll be able to get a deeper dive for free for a couple of months to experience that. And then obviously if you want to be in touch to then see what kind of discounts are available for anybody that you're in contact with, we can absolutely facilitate that as well. Okay, so duty to care is made up of the pillars. So we've got diversity and we've got inclusion. We made the conscious point of separating out the two. Often people use the term diversity and inclusion together, and that's broadly accepted, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we were very deliberate in wanting to split those two out. Diversity for us is about seeing everyone for their individual differences and strengths, whereas inclusion is about fairness and equality for all. So the two do go hand in glove, but for the purpose of the insight that we galvanised as part of this second iteration, it came very strongly that people wanted to be seen for their differences and respected for their differences, as well as feeling included. And so that's why we separated the two out. We've got mental health and well-being, which was there last time. We've got physical well-being, which was there last time. We've got safeguarding, which explores both child and adult for the first time in the same place, which is fantastic to see. And finally, the new pillar that we've got this time is safe to practice, which is all about the infrastructure that surrounds the coaching environment and how do we conduct ourselves as coaches to practice safely. So those are the pillars that make up the Duty to Care Hub, and that has reams and reams of resources that as learners, so as coaches, we can go on and learn from and gain our badge and demonstrate our commitment to welfare and the well-being of ourselves and those that are in the coaching environment, but also that there are some resources here to support those that facilitate learning. So if you are from an organisation that supports coaches, even if it's informally through workshops, discussions, there are resources in this hub now that can also support you to facilitate those types of more informal or formal discussions. And again, I'll be using some of them during today's session. Okay, so I want to draw our attention to the main focal point of what's going to take us through the rest of our time together during this session. And it's a film that we created in partnership with the Leeds Trinity University. So we're a Leeds-based organisation, and we really strongly believe in making connections across the sector. And as part of that call, we actually received a really interesting connection with Leeds Trinity University. They have a videographer, a video department there, like most universities do, where there are students who want to learn how to produce film, movies, etc. And so that department contacted us and said, look, we've got some really talented students here this year in this cohort of these final year students. We would love to get involved and take on a really meaty, purposeful project. So we'd seen some of their work from the past, and we absolutely jumped at the chance, and we entered into an agreement with them where it's jointly owned by us and Leeds Trinity University students that actually created the movie. And it sort of really captured the hearts and minds of the students, so much so it became the talk of the campus about what is the cause that they're doing. They are about to drive change. They really want to shine a light on the challenges of well-being, on welfare, safeguarding, inclusion, some of the systemic challenges that were coming out of the inside. And so what happened was, it wasn't just a video project in the university, it now became a project for the journalist students who were doing a lot of insight and research for us around what are some of the stories that have been coming out, kind of past and sort of more present. And it also then got involved the sports students. So the sports students obviously wanted to be involved because coaching is where they want to be. They want to be the change. They want to be the leading light in the sector, and they also wanted to make sure that, to be quite frank, the film was authentic and that coaches were looking like coaches, the actors who were participants looking like participants and doing the sport that they were potentially meant to be representative. Now, at UK Coaching, our role is not just to put our products and projects out there, it's actually to shine a spotlight on some of the lessons that we learned. The process to get to this film was that we worked with all of the experts I explained earlier on, so lead agencies. We also worked with lawyers, so people that had taken on abuse cases in sport, people that had taken on discrimination cases in sport, and we really got to the bare bones of exactly what was going on in pockets. Now, it's very important for me to caveat this by saying the large proportion of coaches are out there doing amazing, life-changing stuff, and it's really important we keep that in view, because in a world where there's lots of press and stories around the negative kind of consequences of getting it wrong, there is a hell of a lot going on out at the moment that is really positive and is changing lives. And so the students really got under the skin of it. We got experts in front of the students telling their stories as well. So we had somebody who works for the CPSU, but is also a counsellor on Shout. And Shout is that counsel line where young people can call when they can see no out of a situation. And, there are people potentially, considering life-altering circumstances. And so we had somebody who was able to say, these are some of the stories that have come forward, real life cases, to really capture the minds of these students and get them that real industry experience to feed into the script. So that was one angle. The second angle was that as UK Coaching, quite rightly, we didn't want to, and nor could we, shine the spotlight on a particular sport, because this isn't about one sport. This is about perhaps bias that we all have to a degree, whether we're a coach or not. This is about our cultural norms in UK coaching, and it's about in the UK, not just in coaching, and it's about us calling it out, that not saying, some of it, yes, is outright incorrect and wrong, but actually just some of it is outdated, and we need to consider a different view in a more modern world that we live in. And some of it was that. So it's about galvanizing all of this insight, not calling out or pinpointing on one spot, and getting that to come to life through the film as authentically as we could. I don't know how many people took the invitation of watching the film before the session, but we will be replaying a couple of the clips and then breaking out into some discussion groups. And that's exactly one of the resources. So we've got the film at the kind of top of the hub, which you'll see on the page when you enter into the hub. But we also have a section where you can replay some of the clips from the film and shine in a more kind of deeper lens and spotlight onto these pillars. So looking at diversity, looking at inclusion, looking at safeguarding, looking at physical well-being, etc. And we're going to explore a couple. So having spoken to Charlie, he said today what might be of interest is looking at welfare and safeguarding. And then the second part, if we've got some time, is then to potentially look at diversity and inclusion. So we've merged those two together for the spirit and sort of the essence of timekeeping if we get onto that time. So without further ado, I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to hope you can hear. I can see Charlie, so Charlie can give me a thumbs up if you can hear the music coming through the film. It is a 5-minute clip, so make yourself comfortable because we need to watch it, and then we're going to break out into some discussion groups, and I'll explain what happens after the film clip. So make yourself comfortable. Make sure you've got a cuppa. Grab yourself some popcorn if you've got some to hand, if it just so happens that way, and enjoy this 5-minute short clip, which is going to explore some of the topic of welfare and safeguarding.
No sound at the minute, Kelly.
It's not coming through? Okay, bear with me.
When you share the screen, there's a box to tick to say share sound as well.
Okay, let me unshare then and then reshare. Bear with me. Apologies about this.
Bottom left, little box.
Let me just reshare. Optimize, there we go. Share sound. Thank you for that, Charlie.
No worries. Yeah, that's better.
All right,
Yeah.
change over.
Yeah.
I understand you didn't follow my instructions. Instead, you mixed things up a bit.
I thought you weren't back until London next week.
Well, it's a good job I trusted my instincts then, isn't it? Who knows what harm you might have done. Come on. An old woman with better stamina than you. Come on, move it. What's going on, guys? It's not good enough, is it? You don't look as if you want to be here. What's happened to you all? I'm asking you a question. Do you want to be here? And you're all absolutely knackered. I go away for 2 minutes and this is what I come back to. If you don't want to be here, go home now.
Aren't you gonna say something? What was the point of all that, huh? Bringing us in oranges? Switching things up in training? What's the point? Are you trying to look good in front of everyone? Trying to buy people's respect?
I was trying to help.
Yeah, well, help us now, Sabrina. We need your help now.
This isn't my team, this is Vincent's team. So if you've got a problem with him or his coaching, maybe you should tell him. He has never listened to me before, so what makes you think he will now?
Cool. Great talk.
Maxine, do you want to be selected for these next competitions? If you don't, just tell me now.
I'm trying, Coach.
Trying everyone's patience. What have you all been doing since I went away? I take my eye off you for just a few minutes, and all your heads have all gone soft. What have you done to my team, Sabrina? You've ruined them. How hard could it be? I left clear and simple instructions. You'd have to be a complete idiot to mess it up. Or did you do it deliberately? Didn't take you long, did it? Funny how you couldn't try it on whilst I was around. Well, you made a big mistake, young lady. A very big
Vincent,
mistake.
stop, man.
You're showing a lot of balls out, you son. Well, I don't need you or any of you to tell me what to do.
What are you talking about, man?
You all seem to be forgetting the reason why you're here. You're not here to play games or whine about, oh, he's hurt my feelings. You're here to learn how not to be losers. If any of you got a problem with it, well, you know what you can do.
Why do you do that? Why do you start threatening people just to make a point?
I'd back off if I were you, Lewis.
No, why do you embarrass people and ridicule them when they say they just want a break?
Lewis, I said leave it.
No, I'm not gonna leave it.
I said leave it, Lewis.
No, I'm not gonna leave it. Because you treat us like we're dogs or we're in the army or something when we're just kids trying to learn how to...
Right, get out of here, Lewis, before I kick you out myself. Think you're a big man now.
No, I don't think...
Stop! Thank you, Lewis, for speaking up for all of us. I've got this. Okay, guys, we're going to finish this session early and we're going to come back to it first thing tomorrow, okay? Okay?
Yes, Coach. Yes, Coach.
Okay, so how's that for you? There we go. Okay, so I should have caveated the video by explaining a little bit about the storyline in case you hadn't seen it. So Vincent is the gentleman that you see in the clip there, and Sabrina is his assistant coach, and she's following in his footsteps and wanting to learn how to become a great coach. And she's an ex-athlete of Vincent, and so that's how she's perhaps got the gig in terms of assisting Vincent. And the storyline follows this dynamic between the two of them, and also how Vincent, as his coach and his coaching practices towards the participants and his way of doing things, and also then Sabrina's opportunity when she gets a chance to take over his sessions for him whilst he's away. And so she sort of sees the light a little bit. She wants to try a few things out from, you know, more modern practices and approaches around coaching. And so the story follows their journeys together, really, and trying to navigate this world of working together, but also then the consequences of these different coaching practices on the people that they coach. And, you know, it's really important to remember that the script is based on real life. So everything, every single word, all the actions, the framing of all of the sort of scenes that you can see, the scenarios are built on insight from what we've learned through a process of 18 months of gathering that insight to feed into that script. So it is interesting. If you haven't seen it from sort of beginning to end, I would certainly urge you to watch it and also use it as an education tool, which we're about to sort of explore now. So with Charlie's help, we're going to break out into breakout rooms. So Charlie, we've got 23 people that's joined today's session. So I think it would still be wise to break out in some smaller discussion groups. So we're going to break out, if possible, into 4 breakout rooms. And breakout group 1 and 2, you're going to look at that first question. So thinking back to what we've just watched, what do you immediately notice? Take a screenshot or a photo, or make a note of your sort of discussion point for those that are going to join. What do you immediately notice relating to any sort of safeguarding or welfare concerns in that coaching environment? And there are some prompts there. So thinking about safeguarding and welfare, what are you noticing? And you might want to think about the actions from the participants and Vincent and Sabrina, language, some of that behaviour. And then if you get time, think about the impact. So who is feeling what? And then considering it from the viewpoint of perhaps Vincent, Sabrina, Lewis. So Lewis is the gentleman and the young lad that stood up to Vincent briefly, and the other participants. So thinking safeguarding and welfare, thinking about everything you can see, the actions, the language, behaviour, and the impact, and considering those different viewpoints. So really trying to step into Vincent's shoes. Sabrina's. I know Vincent might be difficult for some to step into, but try to step into that viewpoint of his. And how might he be perceiving Lewis or Sabrina, and then the other viewpoints. And then breakouts 3 and 4. So raising a safeguarding concern or a welfare concern is everybody's responsibility. I think hopefully we can all agree on that on today's call. Now think about what barriers do you think there might be that prevents whistleblowing sooner in that situation? How has it gotten perhaps to that point where it's that tipping point? And thinking about what's preventing the participants of Sabrina from whistleblowing. And again, you might want to consider what actions, languages, and behaviours and the impact that it's having on those people that's preventing them from whistleblowing, from calling out what's perhaps not going so well. Consider then as well, why do Sabrina and the participants attend the session, and how might they be feeling? So something might be keeping them there instead of dropping out. And what's that tussle that's going on, that push and that pull that's going on? Why are they still there despite what Vincent might be doing, saying, and how he might be acting? There's quite a lot there to discuss in your discussion groups. So I'm going to give you, the time has just gone 1:30. I'm going to give you a good 20 minutes to explore these topics. And we're going to come back at 10 to 3, we're going to come back, and hopefully we'll have somebody to share kind of your points from the discussion group in summary. Is that okay? So take a quick screenshot if you haven't already, break out into your discussion groups, discuss those points for us, and then we're going to come back and share for the sort of 10 minutes after. So coming back at 10 to 3. Is that okay, Charlie? Have I sort of filled enough time for you to break those groups?
Yeah, no, that should be perfect. Yeah, I've got the rooms
Yeah?
ready now. Yeah.
Oh, Holly's drawing.
Right, the room
Okay.
should be open now with a bit of luck. Hopefully people should start moving.
Perfect. Thank you, Charlie.
No worries. People moving?
Yep, we can see
Yeah.
the rooms filling up.
Yeah, people are moving.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Couple more to join those rooms. Yeah, they're going across.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just Mark. Is it Mark? Are you there, Mark? Man, slipped away to put the kettle on.
It's a good idea.
Right, let me just, well, I'll just broadcast a message.
Yeah. No.
All groups. Oh. I hope that didn't go out. Oh, dear.
Oh, sorry, Charlie. I didn't see your having those. I did popped out into a couple of those breakout rooms, and I must say The quality of those conversations were phenomenal. The sort of depth that people were actually going to explore. Some of the topics were fantastic. Actually, it's the first time we're using the film and the resources in this way. They have been designed for this, and so it's really nice to see and feel some of those discussions that have been going on. So thank you to those that kept going, even though I popped in for a little sneaky chat on those rounds. So we had breakouts 1 and 2. We're looking at that first question around what are we noticing in this environment that's causing us a bit of a concern around safeguarding and welfare. So we're going to start with breakout 1, and then we'll move to breakout 2 if you've got anything in addition to add to top up on what breakout 1. So who was the guest speaker representing breakout 1?
Were we breakout 1?
The first question, there was 2 breakouts.
Yeah.
So
I think we were breakout room 1. So
go for it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess starting with Vincent, he came across really angry, like we said. He needs a good cup of tea and someone to chat with. But his use of language was clearly inappropriate, using his punishment techniques and basically using fear as a form of control. Just kind of get on with it or get out, basically, was his kind of ethos, especially in a public space where you've got people just walking through the park and that sort of thing, and the references that he was using quite misogynistic and just really, really bad terminology. Obviously, as a welfare concern, when he's working with an assistant coach as well, he's not demonstrating sort of any kind of good qualities that you'd really want to in coaching practice. So for someone that's kind of essentially learning from him, it's clearly not a good role model in any way, shape or form. And then moving on to Sabrina, we weren't quite sure of her age range either. So assuming if she's under the age of 18, that's again some clear concerns there. But she was lacking in confidence, and she sort of had obviously really struggled with the ability to be able to call him out initially, from what we could see, which could come down to her sort of fear of what would happen if she did call him out, because she's an assistant coach, as a position of then doing on a coaching journey, I suppose. And also, does she have the knowledge and the skills to be able to go and speak to the right person? So again, from a training perspective, there's that sort of question mark around what kind of training and learning she's already previously had. And that kind of links into the participants as well, because they were all having to undergo that same kind of horrible situation. Their body language was really down, demotivated, they looked intimidated. The punishment press-ups as well, that was kind of like a really weird thing, wasn't it? She didn't even have to be asked to do it, she just did it automatically, which is kind of what you'd look in some kind of abuse situations, where that person just gives into that sort of technique of punishment. But then also, if they weren't able to call out who they weren't aware of who they could speak to. So there's, from, I guess, if it was in a club environment, from a safeguarding perspective, they weren't aware of who they could go and speak to if they wanted some help, or to report their concerns, that kind of thing. And then Lewis, he did stand up to the coach eventually at the end, and we were just saying, if she hadn't have interjected, that looked like it could have been going into sort of like a bit of a fight situation potentially, which again is not a great place to be in. So I think that's kind of where we all were. If I've missed anything, guys, speak up.
No, I mean, it's fantastic, and you've called out some real interesting points there as well. So there was a lot of deliberate choices that we made on casting, on the scenario, on the scenes, because we really wanted it to be open-ended enough to strike these really interesting conversations about, well, what if it's this and what if it's that, and we're not quite clear if it's that, so it could be either or. And that really allows us to have those conversations where coaches are actually operating. So we know we've got a lot of coaches operating in open environments that are perhaps not governed by a governing body, that don't have clear reporting lines or procedures and processes. And so what do they do, and how do we get the message down to them about what they should and shouldn't be doing. And likewise with, you know, that you said training and knowledge and that learning education piece is how do we as system experts, and including yourselves in that, how do we get that education and knowledge and that support down, right down to those people operating in those coaching environments? Because, you know, it might be that it's assumed that, you know, everyone knows what great, you know, good and bad practice looks like, or poor practice looks like. And actually, for a lot of the people that have perhaps been exposed to that for so long, it might feel normal until someone actually calls it out and says, this isn't right. I'm not quite sure. I'm not comfortable with this. Especially, you know, the question is, you know, do the Vincents of the world, which there are the Vincents of the world operating out there. It is the minority now, thankfully. But are they just repeating what was done to them? Are they just mindlessly coaching in a way that was done to them, and they perhaps think it's okay, like genuinely believe it's okay? And until somebody calls it out as being poor practice, you know, who is going to hold those mirrors up to those coaches and sort of say, hey, this isn't the way we do things anymore. There's better ways to get a better outcome or the same outcome. So thank you for that breakout one. Really interesting. Breakout two then, so the same question, is there anything in addition that you'd like to share that perhaps you'd like to cover off there that you discussed?
Yeah.
Hiya.
I mean, you've covered a lot there that we kind of discussed, so just trying to think what we can add really. But yeah, we sort of all just said that horrifying kind of environment, but actually quite relatable. I think we all know kind of people that have had experiences like that, or experienced ourselves. But yeah, really sort of toxic environment. And yeah, we just sort of said Sabrina, yeah, really isolated, maybe doesn't know where to take her concerns. And yeah, with Vincent really asserting that power and not allowing people to question him. And we were sort of talking about, he seemed, a couple of us had watched the longer video, but he seems like quite a respected coach within that environment, and actually challenging that can be really difficult, particularly when someone's viewed as a role model. And I know one of the participants in the video as well, I think he talks about his having a relationship with his dad, and that he'd taught his dad before and stuff. So yeah, it's as a participant, again, you might not feel comfortable then maybe disclosing something to a parent or whistleblowing to a carer if you know that they have a good relationship with that coach as well. What else were we saying? But yeah, we kind of related it back to a little bit of yesterday as well, and that play their way, that the environment that was created was, there was no empowerment for the participants, and no voice in anything that they were doing. It was all kind of top down from Vincent. We spoke about, yeah, like the other group said, the language that he used. Anything else? But and I know you just mentioned it, but we kind of played devil's advocate a bit about Vincent as well. And actually, is that all he knows, and a lack of education for him and development for him? You know, like you said, is that how he was coached? And that's all we kind of know. So, yeah, I think that's all we can kind of add. But similar conversations happened.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, Lauren, because remember, I've been in this journey from the very, very beginning of Duty to Care years ago through to its second iteration, including the insight and creating the script, and being involved in everything from casting to delivery. And even I was torn about Vincent watching this back for the first time. I didn't know if to ram his whistle down his throat and have it done, or actually if I felt sorry for him, because you know, is he just a coach that's trying to do good in the world, but actually has lost his way a little bit? And does he just need some support? But at the same time, some of the stuff he does is just outright it's just not okay. Like, you know, it has to stop. And so, yeah, even I was, you know, really torn by Vincent when I saw it all come together, which, you know, really took me by surprise, because I thought, you know, Vincent is just not a character that I'm going to get along with in this storyline at all. But there is a turning point in the movie as well, in the short film, at one point where you do actually see a slightly more vulnerable side to Vincent, and you start to try to empathize a little bit and see the world from his perspective in some ways. And, you know, there are some coaches operating out there. They're not bad coaches. It's just that perhaps they just lost their way. They need a bit of upskilling. They need to be a little bit more open-minded to the world in which we now operate. So yeah, thank you for that, Lauren, and thank you, Breakout 1. So Breakout 2, you had a slightly different question in the fact of what's preventing Sabrina from whistleblowing, participants from whistleblowing. You know, how do we empower these people to call it out? So who would like to? I can see if there is a camera being angled around there too. This is the lady I couldn't see in the breakout with the long list. Is that correct? Yeah, she's got all the answers for everybody. Everyone got a notepad and pen at the ready because this is the right list that's coming, isn't it? Yeah,
But I feel actually like there's a lot of crossover with what's already been said.
Yeah.
But in terms of like barriers preventing people from whistleblowing, first of all, we spoke about the fear of Vincent, that he seemed really unapproachable and negative. His behaviour and attitude, that people have got used to his behaviour and attitude. He is a bully, possibly misogynistic, sexist. He uses sarcasm and the use of punishments. So that was one element. Also that there's a lot of trust being placed in Sabrina by the participants, and she's not speaking up about it. She's not empowered to speak up about it. We said that there was fear of repercussions if they did speak up, because they might not get selected to be in the next event. And then again, like some people have mentioned, we didn't know if this was a local club or if there was a welfare officer there, if there was anybody that they could report to, and that Vincent was potentially a lone wolf and unregulated and unaffiliated. I don't know if anybody else from our breakout room has got anything to add to that.
No, it's yeah, got it all covered there. Perfect, thank you. And so breakout 4 then, with the same question, was there anything in addition that you'd like to add?
So one of the things we discussed was around Vincent and where his direction was coming from, that he was in, you know, maybe he had a target if he was part of a club, that, you know, he had to get, for him to be seen as a successful coach, he had to get them to, you know, the competition, had to get so many wins, that sort of stuff, not making any excuses for his behavior, but what his motivation was. Do you think also we looked at Sabrina, and obviously she's looked up to him as a mentor, as a coach. So she's obviously battling with her conscience. She's obviously done an up-to-date coaching course and obviously is aware of modern practice and everything else. And like we're saying, swings and roundabouts as to whether he's just a bit old-fashioned and is coaching the way he was taught or the way he was coached, or whether he is, you know, someone to be really concerned about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she was obviously looked up to him, had her own way of doing things, but didn't necessarily know whether. But one thing we also noted was it was sort of a bit of a catch-22 situation where the children or the participants were beaten down because of his behaviors. So their performance was obviously getting worse because they were feeling low in mood and everything else. So they didn't have that motivation to push themselves. So he was then obviously behaving worse because they weren't doing what he needed them to do. So it was only ever going to get a worse situation.
Yeah.
And I think obviously when he was away, Sabrina had that, and she coached the way she has been taught to coach, and the others obviously saw that, and that gave them a bit of empowerment. But it wasn't until obviously, I think everyone has their own breaking point, and obviously he hit Lewis's breaking point and he couldn't do anything else. But then obviously he threatened Lewis with actually having to leave the club for speaking out. So it's not even just fear of not going to the event, it's fear of actually being chucked out completely.
Yeah, and for anybody that's actually watched the full film yet, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't yet, but a little spoiler alert, is that actually Lewis was Vincent's biggest advocate in the earlier parts of the film, and it took a little while for Sabrina to break through Lewis to help to bring Lewis on board to see Sabrina's perspective, and that it doesn't need to be this way, that there are other ways. And so actually to get to that point where Lewis is challenging Vincent is a real turning point in that film, because what we wanted to show was actually that participants are on a journey as well as coaches, and it is possible to support participants to find their voice, and for participants to feel empowered to raise their concerns and challenge the norm if they're feeling supported enough. Now, Lewis obviously had his breaking point, which was one factor, but he clearly felt supported in some way by Sabrina to be able to stand up. There was something there for Lewis that was like, no, this has to stop now. You can't keep doing this for anyone anymore. And coupled with, play their way initiatives, and obviously then doing some really deep-rooted work with coaches about how do they empower participants to have a voice, and how do they see a challenge in perspective as a positive, as contributing towards that melting pot of ideas and innovation, not as seeing it as a direct challenge around respect or damaging ego, which if we're honest here is probably what's going on in some ways with Vincent, is that he's got lots of going on for himself, and ego perhaps being a factor in that as well, that he's just perhaps not wanting to be damaged. Earlier on, I think it was, I've forgotten who had mentioned it there, was talking about a fear of being deselected. And this is something that actually came out in Insight. So when we'd done some Insight, there was a story that was told, we had to keep everything anonymous, where at the end of one of the Olympic cycles, some of the athletes were asked to give some feedback about their time. And it was apparently an anonymous survey. And someone had sort of tried to call out some bad practice that had been going on in camp, in the Olympic camp. And it was one of the last times that I'd done this. And the survey had all the results had all come in, and there was a conference and like a debrief that was called by the sport. And they were actually threatened in this conference that if they were found out, they would not be competing again. And that happened recently and that is what people fear. It is a real fear that people carry. And so it just really ignites that desire for change in the system. We're not talking about one person, and we're not talking about the majority, and that's why it's tough, because we're not saying this is definitely not all coaches, it's not all sports, and it's not across all parts of the pathway. But what it is it's deep-rooted cultural beliefs and biases that are perhaps playing out in a way that, it's not always predatorial behaviours that are playing out here. This is sometimes just, people that have lost their way over time and needs perhaps a bit of guidance, support, and challenging, and being told this is unacceptable, this cannot continue because you're borderline, either abuse or you're borderline unsafe. This is not okay. And they might not actually be aware. And when you hold up the mirror, it might, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was the impact of my words, my actions, my behaviour. And it's our job to make that happen. It's our job as a system, as a sector, to hold up the mirror and just to say, hey, this has got to stop, or we need to think about how we modernise how we go about this. And we need to do that through us, through multi-agency approaches, working with coaches, working with participants to find their voice, and then together it's that slow, steady, gradual change for sort of positive good. Okay, so we're going to move on, and we're going to look at one more short video clip, and then we're going to break out slightly shorter this time, and then we're going to come back together. So this next video clip is going to look at the topic around diversity and inclusion. As I explained earlier, I've just done that thing again, Charlie, where I shared without sharing my video sound. Let's do that, optimize. There we go. There we go. So the next clip is all about diversity and inclusion, and then we're going to break out a bit quicker this time. It's a shorter clip, it's only 3 minutes, and yeah, we'll break out after this into the same breakout rooms. I'll give you your questions before you break out.
Okay, guys, I want to mix things up a bit.
What are you doing? This is what we do every training session.
Yeah. I thought it might improve engagement and energy levels. Let's do rob the nest, and boys, I want you to go over to the girls. You're not joining in, Lewis?
Nope. Can't see the point. Can't see the point in mixing the teams. Why put the strongest with the weakest? It makes no sense. Vincent would never do that.
Yeah. I know it's not been done before, but you might actually have fun.
Fun. I know exactly what's gonna happen. Maxine's gonna finish last, but this time she's gonna drag the rest of her team down with her. Connor's gonna come in late for whatever reason. Then the best athlete's gonna win.
You seem very certain. Who's the best athlete?
Well, I am the fastest here.
Are you sure about that?
So the player who collects the most cones in 1 minute wins. On your marks, get set, go! 45 seconds!
I almost had you.
You did? Was it good?
You're pretty quick.
You were close.
Sorry, boy.
I am so impressed. So yeah, all of you, go home, enjoy yourselves, relax, and I shall see you again tomorrow for training. But yeah, big well done, everyone. Now go home, relax. See you later. Thanks, Lewis.
No worries. I just want to apologize for the way I could have come across earlier. I don't want you to get the wrong impression of me.
Forget about it. Thanks for helping and staying behind.
No worries at all, no worries.
So, I've been thinking, would you mind helping me out for the next few days? I mean, the group's a bit large to manage on my own, and you might enjoy bouncing a few ideas around.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're going to break out, but for probably only about 5 minutes. So we're going to be moving on a little bit after this to explain a little bit about the hub, what's available with your free access, and then we'll be closing the session and opening up for any questions as well. So breakout 1 and 2 this time, you've got top question there. So from that clip you've just experienced, what moments demonstrate positive diversity and inclusion within the session? And then maybe make a note of a moment or a couple of moments that for you create the most impact. So what are some of those turning points in the clip can you see? And then there's just some consideration points there for how does Sabrina create that person-centered coaching environment where everyone feels included and sort of equal. And then breakout 3 and 4 is the bottom question there. So what does the term belonging mean to you? And then from that clip, what is the role of the coach in creating belonging? So perhaps in that clip there, you can see some of the ideas there playing out there around what creates belonging and how might it feel when people do or don't belong. And so from that clip, so just about 5 minutes now. So Charlie's going to break you out. You're going to go into the same breakouts as before, and then we'll come back and do a quick sharing before we move on. So breaking out now until just after 20 past. Thank you. I'll stop sharing as well.
Charlie, I'm not sure I've been allocated a room, mate.
Thank you, Charlie, for sorting that out. Oh, you're on mute.
There you go, Fraser. That should be room 2.
Still not got anything coming up. I was in room 1 before. I don't know if that helps.
How's
Oh,
that?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I got room 3 come up. Is that all right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, jump in there, mate.
Cool. Cheers. Thank you.
What time do you want them back in?
Well, we've just hit 20 past now, haven't we? I'm just conscious that to just give them 5 minutes to explain what's in the hub so they know what they're going off to explore with their membership. And then I want to leave some time for question and answer, but try to finish around the same time. So we're on 20 past, maybe about 23, bringing them back in. Would that be okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. The feedback coming back in to the main group took a little longer than I thought it might take, actually, which is good, which is fine. I wanted it to roll on. But it just meant that this time they just got shorter discussions, which hopefully might focus the mind. That's why I said keep them in the same group so they don't have to do that whole refamiliarization.
Yeah.
Again, you know, they can just get on with the question now. Just go and jump into one. The second one. Moments around that diversity and inclusion. Who wants to come forward first?
Yeah, I think I got nominated as speaker. We first mentioned about Maxine because he mentioned that Maxine was the weakest. They gave Maxine the sort of the whistle. And she sort of started. She was involved in actually running that activity. And just how straight away she sort of, instead of mixing abilities, she just mixed the team so everybody felt included. So we said that was really sort of impactful straight away. And then how she get at the end when Lewis sort of started changing his mindset and stuff, how she gave him that responsibility and that shared leadership bit to sort of make him feel included, and not just that he would be working for her, but with her, and invited his ideas and things like that. So yeah, they were the bits that we sort of picked out.
And it's key because she's obviously seen that Lewis is a major influencer within that team, within that kind of getting the team to buy into her perhaps different way of doing things. And so she's clearly seen that and using that to the advantage of herself, but also others over time. So a nice spot about Maxine. It was a subtle one, but nice spot about Maxine about really sort of her stepping forward. Not everybody sees that actually, that she's obviously been told she's the weakest. And actually, for those that have watched the film, will see perhaps it's just new insults she needs in her trainers. It's the fact that might be the small adaptation that needs to be made for Maxine to help her become a little bit faster and a bit more comfortable. But yeah, nice, good, Katie. And then breakout 1 then. So the same question. Anything else to add that Katie didn't perhaps say?
So yeah, we sort of mentioned about that she kind of she was able to read the room quite well, so she could notice. We said like the girl that was at the start that looked quite conscious, she was looking around, and it was almost as if there was a bit of a spotlight on her. So she did a game where everybody was so focused on other things that they could all still sort of get along. We mentioned the bit about the end, like with Lewis being able to do some more sessions with her, but we also thought that she probably as a coach would take some wins from that. So she had quite a big challenge with Lewis, who clearly wasn't sort of up for taking part at the start. The fact that she was able to come away from the group, speak to him in kind of a relatively friendly manner at his level, whilst everybody else was doing their thing, but actually then in the fact that at the end they'd almost reached a common ground, which probably for her as a coach is quite a positive for her, of that she'd actually managed to get somewhere with it. And then we also said that it seemed quite a person-centered, and their members, sort of a person-centered approach that they had within the group. So she might have come in with a session and the idea was there, but she was quite happy to change it rather than just try to keep going through because that's what she'd planned.
Yeah, fantastic. Great points there, Emily. Thank you for that breakout start. Lovely. And then we had a section on belonging. So the 2 breakouts that looked at belonging, which is quite a deep topic, actually. So I'm impressed if you've managed to come up with 1 or 2 points in the time that you had, because, this topic in itself can take a day, month, year worth of development and training around. So breakout 3, let's go breakout. In fact, let's go breakout 4 and then breakout 3 because we developed the first lots of breakouts. So the last breakout 4.
Yeah.
What were your sort of 1 or 2 key points that you wanted to share around belonging that you noticed?
So we've sort of thrown a few words together. So there was mutual respect, inclusion, ownership, shared leadership. There was value showed, and appreciation. Like at the end, she said to them when they went off about good job, well done, go relax, that sort of thing. We liked the fact that she took part, so we felt that she was being part of them rather than them and us. And because obviously Lewis had said he was the fastest, she obviously had some sort of belief that he was one of the stronger participants, didn't then put up someone else that potentially was going to lose against him. She put herself up in that position. And like we say, obviously Maxine then took control, and she did actually show him that maybe he wasn't the fastest, but didn't make a big thing of it. She helped him up off the floor, and all that sort of stuff. So she didn't sort of go, but yeah, so that they accept differences, but embracing their shared goal. And they almost create a challenging a friendly, challenging environment because they all feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Thank you for that. And then breakout 3, anything more to add?
Not much more to add. I think just one main point looking at the video was something that Mike said around how Sabrina gets the team to kind of work together as a group, while as Vincent was looking to have them work against one another, based really around results, and Sabrina's session was really based around fun.
Yeah. Lovely, I love that. Thank you. And yeah, Vincent, it's alluded to a little bit in the beginning there, but Vincent is very much, boys train with boys, girls train with girls, and the 2 shall never mix because of whatever idea he's got in his mind. And that's clearly passed down into Lewis, which he's sharing why we're mixing them up. Vincent would never do that, when actually there is still there's great value in doing that. And there are some sports where it's unsafe to have the 2 mixing, and for regulatory rules and for safety, that's why they have to be separate. But on the whole, it's a positive environment when they do mix, when there's an opportunity to do that. Lovely. Okay, so we are coming to time. I want to quickly just show you before we move on, before I bid you farewell, sorry, what is accessible in the Duty Care Hub. So the hub is aimed, like I said, at coaches, those in the coaching environment, from sport through to activity. It's also aimed at those that are involved in developing coaches. So if you are somebody that is responsible for developing coach education or sharing resources and learning, you can use this as a free resource and asset. There's a tier at the top that's free. The badge is free to achieve. The guides to get the learning to achieve the badge is free. There are some bits at the top there, some cool technology, which I'll show you in a moment, that's free. There are some deeper bits around some e-learning, some other on-page content that's a little bit more higher valued that we've had to invest slightly more into. That's what you're going to get for free with your limited time access. And coach, people that are members with UK Coaching will access that as well as part of their membership as well. If you are interested in giving bulk discount to membership, then there are some tiered discounts that you can access as well if you want to do that. If you are inside an organisation and you think, actually, regardless if you're a teacher, with some teachers use this within their resources, not even in sport but outside of sport, leaders use this as well. If you want to use this resource in your organisation, do it. If it's there and it's to be used and it's to do good, feel free to use it and share it as far and wide as you want to. So I'm just going to, if you'll just sort of hang on for just a couple more minutes, I'll just show you what is available for the rest of it, just to sort of whet your appetite, so to speak. So that's the badge. So if you want to get your badge and sort of really demonstrate your commitment to upholding the duty to care and welfare and well-being of people that are in the coaching environment, you can go and get that for free. Go and do that anytime. There's some linked learning that's for free as well that'll get you through that badge as well, and it really does demonstrate your commitment, but also your knowledge around these subject areas. And for anybody that is collecting the CPD points there as well, will achieve 3 CPD points, and some of this does map into some of the standards as well. And so there are some credentials behind that badge which are all explained on the page. Inside the free to access area, we've invested in some really cool AI technology. So you can have a virtual conversation with Dame Kelly Holmes and also Max Whitlock. So Max Whitlock talks about his struggles with mental health and well-being. And Dame Kelly Holmes talks there about her kind of experience around inclusion and diversity, particularly around how she had to suppress her status of being a lesbian woman, and that fear that held her back. So she kind of really lifts the lid on that. There's lots of free resources as well around racism, around overcoming and tackling racism, around mental health, well-being, etc., position of trust, those types of things. And a lot of these things are free to access, but some of them are in that membership layer, which is what you will get access to as a result of attending today. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to spend the afternoon with me this afternoon, and I hope you've gained some things from today. Feel free to get in touch with us. My email is krodriguez@ukcoaching.org if you want to reach out directly. I'll pop it into the chat for you now. But without any further ado, I'll bid you farewell and have a wonderful remainder of the day. If there are any questions, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself, pop yourself on in the chat the question, or get in touch directly. Like I said, I'll pop my email in there now. But thank you, and thank you to Charlie for being an excellent technical host and support.
Nice one. Thanks, Kelly. There should be a couple of poll questions that hopefully you can see on your screen now. They only sort of 4 or 5 questions there, just to give us a bit of a snapshot as to how you found today. Like I said, there will be an overarching survey coming out probably next week, and someone popped something on the chat around the recording. Yeah, that will come out probably next week as well.
Thank you.
Apart from that, once you've done the questions on the poll, please feel free to dive off. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.